Hi everyone, this is Nikki Yu, also known as Faces Trader, and you're watching the April 7, 2021. It is a Wednesday, and let's begin. Sorry for a while ago, the audio was a bit blurry, and I think there wasn't audio being heard by others, so we're gonna repeat the exact market recap. So the Philippine markets are up 61 points or up 0.9%. It's 6,651.71. And you're seeing that a majority of the market followed through, meaning last night the market was up. And today, even in the Philippine markets, we continue to go up despite the fact that volume is still very low. You could see that market value still remains at 5.8 billion. So we're not at the 8 billion or 10 billion peso value traded. It's still half. So a majority of the market is still concentrated in a lot of non-index names. And you're seeing that there's 147 advancers, still we are seeing value traded very low. So let's take a look. However, the fact that our index is still muted, you can see that the index is at 66, not a lot of index movers. What is notable to see is that there are some 5% gainers today, particularly your SM Prime here at 36.85 and MPI at 4.15. These are 5% gainers for the day. And then you've got a slew of intriguing stuff like drops on your Ayala land. Well, not really a big drop, but the fact that it's 34.5 and Ayala Corp at 7.75 shows to us that at least for the day, there's a huge discrepancy between SM Prime and SM versus Ayala Land and Ayala Corp. So, and you could see that there are some names that continue to be still very low. Your Robinson's Retail at 55, your Globe at 18.38, suggesting to us that the market wants to be risk on and is actually selling off some companies that are, in our view, very high cash flows businesses. So Globes is a very predictable cash flow business with a lot of subscribers, mobile subscribers, and a lot of people are still patronizing your supermarkets of Robinson's Retail, as well as their diversified nature, owning a lot of drugstores like South Star Drug. So there might be actually opportunities in the Philippine markets, despite the fact that the volume is very little. Now, you could see as well that there has been some weird movements. Your Semirara is down $1, 1 peso. Well, it's not really weird because of the dividend expiry, but you could see that DMCI is actually up to 5.75, showing to us that DMC is trying to decouple from the drop of Semirara. So that's an intriguing fact, actually. All right, so let's also try to understand the stats, no? Top traded names, I think what's critical here is that what you're seeing is that while your Dito, BSC, Ascen, Primex, Landfest, APL continue to dominate the leaderboards in terms of value traded, you're seeing some new names popping out. Like you've got your Ever going up today, and so we're gonna try to understand the movements in the Philippine markets on these top traded value names. Top gainers today are your Primex, your Ever at about 80 million and 40 million. Both are 16% up. Even your WPI went up 10%, although 28%, 28 million only. And then some land continues to go up, and then your BSC continues to go up. So let's try to understand each of these names for you. So isa-isa lang. So let's take a look at the charts. You could see that Primex has been continuing upward. We have seen disclosures that Primex is trying to sell off the land. And so most likely there is some people that are trying to buy Primex based on that news that Primex is trying to unload their properties for a better valuation. So take a look. The fact is, Primex went from 55 cents all the way to $7, 7 peso 50. So that's about approximately more than 7x, no? 14x. So 14x move here. And then a quick 90% drop from about 7.50 all the way to about nearing 75 cents. The drop was actually 1 peso. And then so far 2 peso and then 3 peso. A 3x move so far from 1 peso lows. The typical resistance is the halfway zone, which is 4 peso. So at 3 pesos, how high can this go? Perhaps a strong resistance at 4 peso. But you could see that perhaps in the next 6 months, 2 to 4 range for Primex. So you can understand that Primex is in a bullish state, 2 to 4. I don't know if you can still get it at below 2, but we'll see. City Land has also been getting a lot of buyers, as you could see over the last few days, last few months. You could see that City Land has dropped from as low as 140 to as low as 80 cents over the last 3 years, and so far it has broken that 3-year high of about 140 to trade to as much as 280. I could only argue that land is very low float, such that with a lot of volume activity, there's really a lot of just momentum happening on your City Land. So City Land has no volume since the last 5 years, and I think the volume, or even as much as 20 years, you could argue 20 years, City Land has had zero volume. And for whatsoever reason, for 2021, people are really adamantly pushing up land, city and land developers. As to why, I don't know. But from March till April, a lot of volume activity, something that has been absent for the last 20 years for city and land developers. So, Fes, what's happening here? You could see that for the last, I'd argue, yes, 10 to 20 years, ever since Fes was listed, always got a resistance here at 1 peso. Will the market change its view for Fes? I still don't know, but for now, very strong resistance at 90 cents. So you do have resistances at 90 cents for Fes. So land is a tricky question because 20 years there was no volume, and then so began 2021, many buyers on land. As for Ever, let's take a look at these names, Evergotesco. You could see that as well for the last how many 20 years, Evergotesco has never really jumped, no? But as you could see, things can be unusual for the Philippine market. And in one of our exotic movements in the Philippine market, you're seeing 10 cents actually being picked up, and now it's 14 cents. First resistance right now is here at about 20 cents. So you'll see a few resistances at 20 cents, could be a movement 10 cents to 20 cents, but that is a range of about mostly 10-year range already for your Ever. All right, so what can we see on green? Okay, for Greenergy Holdings, we are seeing similar action, no? For the last 20 years, 15 years of existence, Greenergy has never broken above 4 pesos. But so far, it did, no? So 350, that is an automatic resistance that turns out to be a support. And then a few resistances here at about 5 peso. So for whatsoever reason, the market is actually very bullish on Greenergy. 350 and 3 pesos is your highest, is your higher low for now. So we'll see whether the market will continue to patronize Greenergy, but this is about a 15-year resistance that has become a support. So it is intriguing to actually see how the market is buying a lot of non-index names these days, with volume very strongly picking up. So we can see some buyers at 3 pesos and at 350. All right, in some of our non-index names, let's understand each one of them. As you could see, Dito Telecom is still way above the resistance, way above their prior resistance of 8 pesos, still trading above that. So this is more of an extension over an extension. And right now, it's still trading here at 11. So still resistance here at about 12 to 14. But it is notable to see that in the next 6 months, perhaps 7 to 14 is likely the trajectory of your Dito Telecom. So range trade at the moment. ASEN, as you could see, very strong movement from their solar plays. And you don't really see a material pullback except the fact that you saw this 7 peso consolidation in the short term. So in the short term, very strong resistance as well at 8 to 10. So it's still a trading range for these names. 6 to 9 perhaps for ASEN. All right. FA. So we showed to you guys yesterday, that most of these names, after some restructuring, seems to getting some support here at about 2 pesos. But very strong resistance at 3. So just be aware of the resistances. You've got the resistance every 10 to 20%. Move as high as 50%. BSC gets a lot of buyers. So you could see BSC right now here at 70 cents to 1 peso. That said, BSC has these resistances at 130. So just be careful as well on resistances. APL, let's take a look at that. Apollo Global, same thing. Resistance here at about 30 cents, but a lot of buyers here 20 to 22. BHI, let's take a look at that. BHI continues to go up. we can see that for the last how many years, BHI has been slumbering here at about 5 cents. And so far, the first resistance is here at about 11 to 12 cents. So, and then another resistance at 15 cents. Nonetheless, you could see that for the last 10 to 15 years, BHI has been stuck in a 5 to 15 cent range. So just be aware of the ranges when you are trading these names. Okay, let's take a look at Vol, ABA, last few names. Okay, last few names. Vol, okay, for the last 10 to 12 years, Vulcan has resistances here at about 2 pesos and 3 pesos. Okay, so it means that the Vulcan is getting a lot of buyers here at 2, but take note that 3 pesos has a lot of sellers as well. So you are still at extended ranges. Yeah, so for now, we'll just expect a range play for all of these names. ABA, also same thing, trading the range 90 cents to 130. So you are still seeing that the market is still heavily trying to see how these extensions are working out. So extensions to, so be quick when you are trading these names. FNI nickel, let's talk about that. Okay, FNI. So we are seeing that the global nickel movement is going up, and Nickel Asia and FNI are trying to benefit on that theme. So what can we say? You've got support at 2.2 so far, and some resistances on FNI here at about 3.6, and perhaps a very strong resistances as well here at 315. Okay naman, like you've got that 2 to 3 range action for FNI. And then let's take a look at Nickel Asia, same thing. Range play, right? So in the short term, you've got a lot of buyers here getting protection here at about 4.7, but a lot of resistances at 6.5, and then ultimately here a resistance at 9 pesos. Okay, so let's take a look at your questions now. Sorry for any brief problems. ABA, please. So ABA, I answered already, 0.9 to 1.3. Ma'am Nikki, ASEN, answered already. ASEN looks to be a 6 to 9 trading range. Primex also answered 2 to 4 range. Hi, Nikki, is MPI going up to 4 peso levels? MPI is already 4.15 today. So I'd say that MPI has a buyer at about 3.9, 3.6, right? So you do have a lot of sellers of MPI at 4.5. Just be careful because for the last couple of months, you do have a very strong resistance here at 4.5. So just be aware that there's a resistance at 4.5, but some buyers here. So we know that there was buyer action here before 360. So that got supported again here at about 370. And this first movement is actually perhaps just part of a trading range. So I'd argue that for 50 MPI will have some selling pressure. How about, so nickel and FNI answered already. Good job. I think like nickel and FNI have 50% ranges. So if you're trading the range, I think that you've got about a 50% range on FNI and perhaps a 20 to 30% range on your Nickel Asia. What about CLI? Is it still good to buy at the moment? So, so far CLI doesn't register in our volume, so no volume. But I'd argue that so wala siya, well, may volume konti, no? I guess if you have it, just keep it, no? So it's been in a range for the last couple of years, 2018 to 2020. You've got some buyers here at 380. And then some resistance at 540. So far, so good that that 540 finally broke above. We'll see. So far, if you're holding this, looks like you've got some buying pressure at 550 and then more buyers at 450. And ultimately, this has already gotten a lot of support. So uptrend naman for CLI. And they've been giving a lot of dividends, diba? Ever since 25 cents cash dividend here, 20 cents cash dividend here. So in fairness to this company, they've been an active cash dividend player for the last 3 years. How about tech? Any news about chip demand? Pag gusto mo talaga chip, just go for Nvidia na lang. Very easy mag-GPU ka sa Nvidia. Mas maganda yung pera mo dun. Okay, let's answer your question. Sige, Tech is parang asleep lang, di ba? 6.6 pa rin. What's the action ba? 6.4. So it's just been asleep for the last couple of months. So tulog siya for the last, I'd argue for the year, 2019 to 2021, 2 years asleep si Tech. So I don't know when the company will wake up. Thoughts on dito, trading range, 7 to 14. Miss Nikki, how about pizza and MAXS? Nice move for pizza today. All right, so let's take a look at some restaurants as well. Okay, restaurants, pizza, and Jollibee and MAXS. So these are all reopening themes. Good job for pizza, no? Yeah, very good, Shakey's Pizza. So this one is more of a value play for others who are seeing that there's value in restaurants in the Philippine market, even as fast foods and stores are closed down. So this is more of a 2-year play. You're playing this such that 2022 or 2023, the Philippine market does recover such that it does go back to its previous highs of 2018 or 2019. Previous high of Shakey's was about 15 pesos, and you're seeing it at 50% drop here. So some people are actually mustering the courage to buy Shakey's Pizza while it's low. Okay siya. I think pizza here about 7 is good. So, okay siya, 7 pesos, 7.20. You're seeing as well MAXS, no? So, MAXS would be the same thing. What we will assume that these are your resistances muna, 2018 highs. Hindi muna kasi MAXS was pancake house before, no? So, marami siyang mga backdoor resistances. You could see that here at about 15 to 16, very strong resistance there. 16 divided by 2 is roughly 8. So naging resistance muna yung 8. Pero you've got some supporters here. People who are trying to find value are seeing value in MAXS here at about 6 pesos. Pwede naman. Pizza and MAXS, 6 and 7 looks to be okay. I'm okay with that. MAXS and pizza. Okay, let's take a, so ano yan? MAXS is the owner of Krispy Kreme, owner of Yellow Cab, very good company. M-Wide, ABS, DMC. Okay, let's answer the last few questions before we go to global. Okay, M-Wide is a function of airports, diba? So M-Wide got a lot of disruption in their chart because of the fact that the NAIA rehab, diba? There was a lot of controversy on whether they will get the airport or not. So in the short term, you have these resistances. 11 fell down 50% here at 6. Some people are picking it up simply because with or without the NAIA rehab, well, M-Wide still is construction of many government projects. So perhaps it's stuck in a range at 6 to 8. Any question? M-Wide. ABS. So ABS is still about the franchise renewal. So you could see that for the longest time, it's been asleep here at 11. So it's a question on whether ABS can revive itself, whether franchise renewal. But also you can notice that ABS has always tried to sell some of their shows to Netflix. So you're seeing a lot of shows of ABS, Star Cinema projects are also hitting the Netflix shows. Perhaps over time, ABS is not really about the media renewal play, but really about how it's transitioning to a digital transformation. So I think that is a bigger question. The secular trend is ABS digitalizing, transforming itself digitally for the next 10 years, not about the franchise renewal. DMC is about a transformation from coal, diba? Kasi DMC is still half Semirara. So you have to ask yourself, is DMCI focused on diversifying their revenues into the properties, construction, and water, a lot of assets other than their coal, diba? Kasi coal is pollutant it's called dirty energy. MWC thoughts, please. They're eyeing overseas projects. 14 pesos is a support for your Manila Water. So you know that Manila Water is a slow play, but they have Vietnam. Yes, they've got rollouts there. So if you like the transition of Manila Water as an overseas type of company with growth projects there, you'd argue that MWC is a strong growth play, 14 to 22. We'll read about MWC in the next couple of days. But yeah, I'd argue that 14 is a support for MWC with dividends to boot. About magkano dividends niya? Mga 3% yield. So the question, Mrs. G, Seb, we already answered that you can travel around the world if you want to buy Seb at 39 and 38 during that time. But I think that Seb at 44, 45, you have to argue for yourself na resistance right now at 50 because in the Philippines, there's really no one actually traveling. Pero syempre, if you're thinking about the next 1 to 2 years, pwede. Kasi within the next 2 years, I do think that Cebu Pacific goes at least to 70 pesos. As for Mrs. G, it's an argument as well on how fast the department store reopenings are. You can argue that Mrs. G should be diversified. Mrs. G and Robinson's Retail, both these names are diversified department stores and supermarkets. But between the two, I think the more compelling buy is Robinson's Retail at 55. That said, Mrs. G is right now trading at very low price naman at 1.3. So it is very much below all its IPO. Take note that Mrs. G had done an IPO at 3.99 about 5 years ago. So let's take a look at the story here. Mrs. G, 2016, so about 5 years ago, it listed in the market at 399. Right now, you're seeing Mrs. G trading at about 130 and 118. You'd argue that Mrs. G and SSI have two kinds of players. People who feel that in the last 6 years, well, SSI had dropped from its IPO price from about 7 pesos all the way to 1 peso. Between the two, I think some people are arguing that SSI is a better buy, but it's both. Mrs. G and SSI are both retail reopening value plays. So let's say you believe that the apocalypse is overdone for SSI and Mrs. G. You could buy both of them at 1.2, 1.3. Looks like they're both in the value stage. Value because it's very hard to actually just open a department store with that type of valuation, especially since they do have loyal customers. Mrs. G in Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, but particularly in Visayas, Mindanao. Very good, even in Luzon. Actually, they've got a lot of projects in Luzon, Manila. So not bad. I think the Gaisanos are very undervalued at current levels, as well as your SSI, which is your Rustans group. So these two, SSI and Mrs. G, are good buys, good values. Question on Manila Water is a good question because we can discuss about the growth play of Manila Water in the next coming days. About the Vietnam, yes. Are the banks still on trading range? I'd argue yes. BDO, Metrobank, BPI are still in a trading range. So there. I think what's interesting in the Philippine market, if you're a value player, Pizza, MAXS, SSI, and Mrs. G. The question on Cebu Pacific is good because it's all reopening. So it's really about the flights, the airlines, which is a necessity. That's why I've always been a believer on CEB and MAC. To be honest, as well as DWC, kasi they're all about hotel, tourism, and reopening. Those three names, in fairness, even BHI is a play on the Boracay, because BHI is all about reopening. It's all about the hotels. So if you don't have people in the Boracay, what type of revenue do you speak of? Nothing, right? So yeah. Okay, thank you very much for listening, and let's go to the global market update. Bye-bye.